the letters and evidence that had been submitted by citizens opposing the project were included in the record for LUBA. You can imagine my concern when I realized 31 letters were missing, including 3 of the 4 letters that I had written. Other individual citizen letters were missing, as well as the community letter that had 17 signature pages with about 130 signatures detailing why citizens opposed the project. I wanted to make something clear. The missing letters were not hiding somewhere difficult to find. When I realized those letters were missing, I went on the City of Manzanita website to the links for the hearings for the project and found all the missing letters there. All of them were in 2 places: the June 2022 Planning Commission hearing link for public comment and the July 2022 City Council hearing link for public comment. It's my understanding that the missing records was a simple, honest oversight, but from our perspective, it was a huge lapse. We're grateful that the city manager directed the record be amended right away and that she reached out to me to discuss what had occurred. Our group's concerns with the Manzanita Lost project was that the application was incomplete and didn't meet the burden of proof for city approval. We want city projects to follow code and to be done right. And as citizens, this seems like a reasonable ask. What if I hadn't taken the time to go through the over 400-page record? And what if the details and evidence that we brought forward in the hearings had then been excluded from LUBA review? These types of incidents can reduce the trust of citizens in government and make people feel excluded and silenced. It can create a sense that things are not being done correctly, and the concerned citizens urge the city to make sure that tasks like this one are given the care and oversight needed to make sure that things are done correctly and completely. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Denise. Layla, would you like to address those concerns?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I do want to thank Denise too for both her thoughtful comments and for her diligence in reviewing the record. I understand and I deeply respect the community's desire to highlight this error. I remember when I interviewed for this job, one of the questions that was asked of me is, if I've ever made a mistake, how do I handle that mistake? And the first thing that you do is own it. And the second thing you do is ensure that it doesn't happen again. This was an error on our part, and I'd just like to briefly speak to that. I will say that it's not uncommon for parties before LUBA to have an objection to the record or seek additional information. So we actually had to do a number of things based on the appellant's requests. I think LUBA proceedings in particular have requirements, and it's very difficult to work backwards if there isn't a system in place, which in this case there was not, to collect and store information, especially if it doesn't happen very often. I know the city has had one incidence where they've gone to LUBA, but this is not something that we were originally set up to handle. And so this is where things broke down. I think the 2 major things that we noted in this error is that we did not have a clear location for receiving of information. And so we have now changed that. Our notices clearly indicate now when and where information needs to be sent. I do want to point out and appreciate Denise sharing this, that the information that was submitted was provided to Planning Commission and City Council. So despite the plethora of information that was flying at us, we did provide that to the decision makers to inform their decision. And I agree with her wholeheartedly that had this not made it into the record, that would have been a disservice to the project. So again, I just want to express my gratefulness to that. Ultimately, the main issue is that we lacked a file structure to track public comment. So that has now changed, and what we have done is developed an internal process to make all our land use applications effectively LUBA ready. So from here forward, we will be accepting public comment. We have an internal process to deal with that. And should we ever have to go back to LUBA, we will be in a position in which we can provide that information in a meaningful way. Ms. Loftman did point out that there were 31 records missing. About a third of those were actually located in the record, but that still does leave a significant number of records that were not, and those were substantial and important. And so I do want to recognize that, know that staff have made a concerted effort to ensure this will never happen again. And we do again appreciate the oversight and thoughtfulness of our community partners that brought this to our attention. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to respond to that. And I want to thank Denise and the concerned citizens of Manzanita to ensuring that we held a high standard.
Thank you, Leila. Do we have anyone else that would like to address?
Yes, Mayor. Yes, Mayor. We do have another question. This one comes from R. Keno. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is Randy Kugler. I live in Manzanita. Two comments tonight, both relating to the City Hall project. The city originally sent out notice that the survey would be available until 5 p.m. on October 19th. I received contact from 3 citizens on the 19th stating that they wanted to take the survey and it was no longer available to them to respond to. I did go back and look and see that the city had sent out a notice on October 17th, which said that the survey would only be available to 5 p.m. on the 18th. It appears that some citizens were not aware of this revised schedule and were not afforded the opportunity to fill out the survey. The second item in regard to the survey also, there was no attempt made to try to delineate or identify who the survey respondents were as to whether they lived in the city, lived out of the city, or lived out of state. I would note that when Manzanita Listens conducted their extensive survey, they did make the attempt to identify respondents, and I felt that that was important information for the city council to consider and would be informative to them as they looked at the survey results. This survey had no such opportunity. I'm not sure what this means in terms of ensuring that the process that the city has made great efforts to ensure that the integrity and the confidence of the citizenry would be protected in this latest endeavor. These two incidents seem to undercut that somewhat. I don't know what the answers to either of those are, but should the city wish to respond to that tonight, I'm sure I and others would appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Do you have any response to that, Leila, tonight?
I do not. I do. We did indicate when the survey would be open, and as the city has always been, we were welcoming feedback. We actually did receive a couple of comments after the survey was closed, which were shared with the city's architects. I should also note that, you know, this is an opportunity for people to provide input. If they're not able to do so in the time frame, they are most welcome to reach out to me and to provide their input on that. This is not the last chance for folks to participate in the City Hall project. So I'm sorry that folks missed the memo and didn't see when the survey closed, but we did provide ample opportunity for folks. And again, like I said, we did receive comments after the fact, and we did welcome those and share those with the project architect. As far as the delineation, I hear Mr. Kugler. I think that we do actually get the names and addresses of all the folks that do participate in these surveys. We can certainly ask folks if they're voters or not. I think that a lot of voices here matter, not just the voters. And so we did want to make sure we were getting everybody. It isn't hard to add that as an additional sort of checkbox in future surveys. And as I told Mr. Kugler previously, that we would do that. So that's what I have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who wants to address the council tonight?
Yes, we do have another question from Sandy Wood. Sandy, go ahead.
Thank you. I live at 120 Beeswax, and no, I am not a registered voter, unfortunately. Doesn't mean I don't want to. Thank you to Denise for making the comments for all of us. And I wonder if a public apology, not just to Denise, but to all of us, because I know I feel like you want transparency and you did not provide it. That was a huge amount of comments and things to have been overlooked. I wish I could congratulate Brad and Linda for their election last night, but obviously that's in hold. And several of us went around for the last 2 to 3 weeks, door knocking, calling people, wanting to make sure if they voted. We got some interesting comments. I don't know if you'd like to hear them or not.
As long as you can keep it within 3 minutes, and you have 2 minutes left, Sandy.
Okay. One lady wanted to know why all of us weren't out picketing against the brewery. Many do not want it built, don't see a need for the complex, don't want a video arcade, etc. I recommended that they Zoom the city council meeting and the planning commission meeting and speak or write letters. They all wanted to know who decided that Manzanita needs this building. The STR problem is endless. And one question I thought was quite pertinent: which do you want, the money or to please the people? Regarding the big houses built for STRs without any community involvement by the owner of the houses. They want the community listened to, not ignored. They were unified in thanking us for door knocking, etc. And they knew that both Deb and Brad had actively recruited their input, questions, ideas, etc. So that was just a few of the comments that were made. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Do we have anyone else with their hand raised, Nancy?
No, Mayor, that is all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move forward now to the consent agenda. And tonight we have the minutes from the October 5th work session and regular session, and the bills for payment, which I believe all the counselors should have seen. Does anybody have any questions on the consent agenda? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
May I have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
On opposed, say nay. Thank you. I'm gonna turn off my. Next item, something we started a couple of months ago, is consular reports. Does any of the consulars want to report on any activities they're involved in this last month in regards to the city and so forth? Well, I can go first. I had a very interesting time last Thursday. I was helping with the what's known as the Veterans Annual Stand Down, which was held at the Tillamook County Fairgrounds. For those of you that may not know what that is, it's put on by the Veterans Services Department at Tillamook County, and they had a lot of booths there and stuff, and people offering services to help veterans file claims with the VA, employment opportunities, educational opportunities, things of that nature. And it was very well attended and very well done. It was all day at the convention center there at the fairgrounds. And so that's something that I did. It was a little unusual this month. Anybody else want anything they want to report?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything to report other than I would like to urge, with a new group of people coming into the council, that the process that we started a couple months ago continues. I do think with some maturity and time, it will prove to be a really valuable asset to the community. It just takes some time to kind of ramp this up, but I hope there's no change in the process going forward and it's maintained. I think it has value. So thank you. I don't have anything to report though.
Okay, Steve, one last chance. Anybody have anything to report, or we'll move on to our two public hearings we're going to hold tonight. Okay, well, let's move on to the public hearings. The first one we want to do is something we've been working on for some time, is the VU grading moratorium, and I'm going to let Layla set that up for us. And what are we trying to accomplish here?
Well, tonight, Mayor, thank you very much. What we're trying to accomplish here is for City Council to open a public hearing on the proposed moratorium for VU grading. As you mentioned and as outlined in the staff report, we've been talking about this for almost a year, and we have issued the notice. The last time we met about this was in September, and council reached consensus to have me move forward and proceed with finalizing those findings. Our city attorney, Sivani Miller, is here today too to answer any questions if you have any. So I issued the notice to the Department of Land Conservation and Development. I worked with the city attorney to finalize those findings, which have been posted on the city's website. I do want to know and thank Councilor Nuttall for noting that the findings had a date of March 9th, 2022 as being the ending date. That should have read March 9th, 2023. So that has been updated and it's on the city's website. But what council would need to do today is entertain any further discussion around these findings, allow the public to make any comments. And then if they elect to do so, they would make a motion to adopt these findings, which would then put an official moratorium in effect. So I think that's where we stand. Suvani, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. Nope. Okay. So that's what we're asking. And
Okay,
if folks are interested, it's a pretty detailed staff report that outlines the process that we've taken.
okay, well, let's start. I'm going to start by opening a public hearing on this topic. If anyone would like to address the moratorium. So the public hearing is now open. Nancy, let me know if anyone has their hand raised and want to speak on this issue.
Yes, Mayor, we do have one hand, Sandy Wood.
Okay,
Sandy, go ahead.
I still live at the same place and I still hope that you do get the moratorium done so that we won't have any dune grading. Thank you.
thank you. We have anyone else?
There's no other hands, Mayor.
Let's just give it a second and then we'll close the public hearing and take it back to the council. Okay, not hearing any other public comment. I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:18. So let me open this up to the council now for discussion. Any further discussion? We've talked about this a lot. So does anybody have any other input or questions or before we move on to adopt this? It's not like it. So I need a motion to adopt the findings for the moratorium.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move to approve and adopt the findings as presented by staff.
Okay,
I second.
been moved and seconded. All in favor of adopting the findings for the moratorium, say aye.
I
Anyone opposed, say nay. That's unanimous. So we've adopted the moratorium on new grading.
Excellent.
So now we're going to do this, look at the second reading on ordinance 22-02 affordable housing tax abatement, which we did the first reading on last month. And anything you need to add on that, Layla, before I open the public hearing?
No, sir.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing on the second reading here at 6:19. Anybody have a comment on this issue? Raise your hand and Nancy will recognize you.
There are no hands raised, Mayor.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to close the public hearing.
Oh, we have one now. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, Kelly Roy.
Being too quick here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Kelly Roy.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Kelly, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kelly Roy. I'm a full-time resident here in Manzanita. I just wanted to say that I'm really excited that the city has another tool in its tool belt to incentivize our urgent need for workforce housing in the form of tax abatement. I'm also equally excited for the council to develop other incentives such as ADUs and creative existing housing solutions so we can try to meet this need more, this urgent need more quickly. So I appreciate all the staff and council's work on getting this first tool in place and looking forward to more tools being developed as we move forward. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
Kelly.
you.
Do you have anyone else who wants to speak on this issue before I close the public hearing?
No one else has raised their hand, Mayor.
Okay, I'm gonna close public hearing on this. It's 21. So, Leila, give us the rundown on this again. Are we still gonna be the first city to adopt this, or has anybody got in ahead of us?
Nope, you will be the first, we will be the first, and not the only, which I think is great. So leading by example, I think Bay City's hot on our heels. And I do all I can to work with our neighbors as well to consider this. So very excited for what I hope you're about to do tonight.
Okay,
I do have one question
Sure.
of the for Leila, and that is this language pretty much follows Tillamook County's document. Is that correct? We're not varying very much, if any, from what Tillamook County has.
No, sir, it does. It mirrors their ordinance. It's actually, the county's going through a concurrent process to make some minor changes, which I mentioned last month, and I'm happy to do so again today, which is confirming that this will be applicable to units that are 3 or more. And also it simplifies the language with respect to how rent is calculated. So the county is going through a concurrent effort right now to get that language updated, but everything else in the ordinance mirrors the county's pretty much exactly.
It's perfect.
okay, we need somebody to read the second reading of the ordinance and make the motion.
I move that we accept ordinance 22-02 affordable housing tax abatement for its second reading.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second,
Okay, it's been moved
I
and
second
seconded. Who is the second?
Steve.
Steve, okay, I heard somebody twice. Okay, Linda and Steve. So it's been moved and seconded to adopt ordinance 2202 as of the second reading. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. So that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move into our new business, and the first item on that is the construction manager's general contractor contract approval. And Leila, can you tell us what we're working on here?
Yes, sir. And just to note for the record and for those out in the community, there's a resolution that's been added to the council packet that's on the website and is also sent to the city council. And so tonight I am asking you to approve this resolution, which would authorize me to enter into a contract with Cove Built LLC for the purpose of serving as the city's construction manager and general contractor. Just to provide some background, on January of this year, City Council approved findings, acting as the local contract review board, approved findings in support of an exemption under competitive bidding that allowed us to go to an RFP to select a CMGC that can work with us through the pre-construction phase. So on August 2nd of 2022, the city issued a competitive request for proposals for CMGC services, and we received 5 proposals, which is pretty extraordinary. Those firms that submitted were Bremett Construction, Robinson Construction, O'Brien Design and Build, First Cascade Construction, and Cove Built LLC. These proposals were reviewed independently according to the criteria that was set forth in the RFP, which if you're interested, you can see is included in the attachment as part of the council packet. The city's owner's representative, as you know, Jesse Steiger of Klosh LLC, the city's architect, Chris Keene of Bearing Architecture, Council President Kozlowski, and Councilor Jerry Spegman and I all reviewed these proposals independently using the criteria and scored those proposals. Of those, as a result of that evaluation, we selected Robinson Construction, Cove Built LLC, and O'Brien Construction to participate in an interview. That same committee participated in that interview process, but we also added the city's building official, Scott Gebhardt, because of his expertise in construction to help us with those interviews. Those interviews, again, were evaluated independently by the committee members in accordance with the RFP criteria. And those scores were added with the review of the proposal to come to a final score in which the winner of that process was Cove Built LLC. Cove Built LLC is actually a local firm. They're based out of Arch Cape, and will be led by Jason Stegner, who's the owner and will also serve as the city's key project manager on this. Jason actually has a degree in mechanical engineering and has spent 20 years working in increasingly responsible positions, including starting his own company, which is Cove Built. He worked for some of the major firms out of Portland, Anderson and Walsh Construction, and has a significant amount of experience working in a CMGC context. A few highlights I noted in the staff report include the Seaside Convention Center, the Nehalem Auditorium Edition, the play area at Nehalem Elementary School, and right now they're engaged in a $5.5 million reconstruction of a gymnasium for the Jewel School District. Just one of the key things that really stuck out to the committee was really Jason and his team have very strong connections with the subcontracting market out here and have a deep experience in building on the coast, both which are going to be essential for our project success. I think anybody in the construction industry knows that your relationships with subcontractors are really essential to having a successful project. This contract is set up similar to the owner's representative and the architectural contract, just to remind you and the folks out there that we have set these contracts up to be phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 gets us through 30% schematic design. At such time, that will allow our contractor, if approved tonight, to price an option for consideration, and the council at that time will make a determination if the city proceeds further, and that would move us forward through design development, construction documents, and ultimately construction. So we will be coming back to the city council to get approval on phase 2. So the city, we worked really deeply with our city attorney to develop and amend a standard AIA contract for the CMGC. What is attached to the council packet is what will be signed. So that's 100% draft. And what we're approving today in terms of dollar amount is a lump sum pre-construction fee of $30,000. The construction costs will be done through what we call a guaranteed maximum price amendment, and that will be brought back to the city council for approval. And then only at that time will those resources be allocated to the construction of the project. So what I'm asking you to do this evening is to approve Resolution 2218, acting as the local contract review board, authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Cove Built LLC for the construction of the Manzanita City Hall. And just to note, this is the final piece in the development of a team that we have been working on for about 15 months. And it is an extraordinary moment in terms of getting everybody in place for us to do a very thoughtful and clear analysis of what options we have before us. Jason and his team are integral in ensuring that we have reliable and fact-based costs that we can put forward before the community and council to understand the costs of real costs associated with constructing a city hall.
Okay, are there any questions from the council on this before we move forward?
Mayor, I don't have a question, and I want to start by saying I'm very enthusiastic about Cove Built having participated in the selection process. I think Layla's laid it out very well, but I just want folks to understand that this is not committing the next council to anything more than a decision that will be made after the completion of phase 1, and that the next council will still be charged with the responsibility to go forward with the team and to contract with the team if in fact the decision of the next council is to move on to phase 2. So that's, I say that just because of the odd timing of this. This is a very important piece of this elongated process that we've been involved in. It happens to be coming just as this council is getting ready to wrap up its time together and welcome new councilors on. So if not for the timing, I wouldn't even be bringing it up, but it is something that I know Steve had raised, and Steve and I had a conversation about it, and I've heard from other folks in the community. Just is this the right time to be entering into a contract right on the eve of a new council? But you know, as I review the work that's been going on, just in the time that I've lived here, 5 years. 5 years ago, Underhill property was being purchased. Now we're finally at this stage of hiring the third piece of the three-part team for phase one. And in those intervening 5 years, we've had 9 different counselors weighing in on these various decision points along the way. And soon we'll have 2 new counselors. So it'll be 11 counselors having been involved from the time Underhill was purchased until that decision is made next spring on phase 2. And I think that's just an illustration of how a project like this has to sort of continue on as the decision makers change and recycle. And so I'm very comfortable with this particular decision tonight, even though in a couple of months we'll be welcoming new counselors to the group, and that new group will then have a significantly larger decision to make in a few months.
Well, I just like to add the importance, the real importance of this CMGC is that it will give data to the new council on cost. So they'll have good data to me. I mean, it's a critical decision, and it's a critical component to that decision made by the next council. So it is really a critical time.
Okay, can I have a motion to adopt this resolution 2218?
Well, I'd like to very excitedly make the resolution of the City Council of the City of Manzanita, Oregon, acting as the local contract review board, authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Cove Built LLC for the construction of Manzanita City Hall.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor of resolution 2218, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? That's unanimously passed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Now we're going to move on to the Doris Lane reconstruction bid documents. Do we go straight to Dan, or do you want to start that, Layla? Go straight to Dan?
I'll let Dan take it from here.
Okay.
I covered for him last time, so.
Good evening, everybody, council and mayor. In front of you, what we're going to be doing is asking for you to delegate to North Coast Civil Design the release of the bid contracts for advertisement. In your packet, you will find a complete set of contract forms and prints. All have been vetted by our city attorney and by Layla and myself. So a little quick history. This is the replacement of Dorcas Lane down to South 4th Street, and then crossing over a little tiny right-of-way over into 3rd Street. This will consist of installing a stormwater main, replacing all the water mains with HDPE, which is the high-density polyethylene. So it's the water main that if the ground moves, it's connected. Doesn't come apart on us. Very, very resilient. It'll also be part of replacing all the service lines to homes and everything else. And then the road itself, this will be a complete reconstruction of road base. So most of the area has no road base in it. As you folks have probably been down Dorcas, it's a little bit of a roller coaster ride, and it's very narrow in a lot of places. So this will open everything up, make it nice, and we'll be putting in the gravel shoulders back in. So any questions on the construction side of it? Kyle's also on here, so you guys can ask away.
Dan, I guess I have one question, and that is, we've been working on this it's been a couple of years now, I think, really.
Yes, it has.
You probably know better than anyone. Where is the market? At one time we were forging ahead, then we saw a lack of contractors and a whole lot of money. And have things come back to a more normal state?
not fully back to Moore State, and I'll let Kyle chime in on this too, because he's had, of course, other projects go out to bid. The market, the biggest hangup right now is not on the labor side. It seems like, Steve, it is on the material side. And so it has caused us to put in more exceptions for different types of materials. Usually we like to specify specific brand and everything. And we're having to really loosen that up to be able to do the project in a timely manner. So Kyle, you want to add to the market stability?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you, Dan. The materials are starting to come back. You're starting to see suppliers stock the shelves with the more normal materials, HDPE, the concrete, all the different water pipes. It's starting to come back to normal. However, certain prices just won't bounce back fully. And so we know that contractors are hungry right now, and we have a pretty good list of people wanting to bid on this project. So we're really leaning on the fact that a lot of local contractors would like to work this close from home. And in order to do that, they're willing to sharpen their pencils. So yeah, we're very positive and we look forward to getting some good bid prices from these contractors.
If it, and this is for Kyle or Dan, I guess, but if it comes back reasonable and we're able to forge ahead, what's the timeframes?
So part of your packet, there's a very detailed, but what we're looking at is if the council approves North Coast to release the bid, bidding will close on November 29th. And then there is some timeframes for people to contest, things like that. And then we will be coming back to you in December's council meeting to say, here's the company that was the lowest bidder, and we'd like to proceed with the project. If for some reason the bids come back astronomical, we'll be coming back to you in December saying, now's not the time, and we'll have to reevaluate.
But once the project starts, what are you thinking in terms of from start to completion?
It's 168 days. So right now we're shooting for a construction completion of June 30th of 23. So we're still trying to close this before 4th of July week.
Okay. I'm sorry if I missed that in the packet. I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't know if I could have possibly.
This also helps with the public to hear too.
That was a trying to be a polite jab, but I probably didn't go over that well with an 800-page. It was good, Layla. Thank you very much.
Any other questions on the documents? Well, someone like to make a motion to approve the bid documents for the Dorcas reconstruction project.
I will move to approve the bid docs for the Dorcas project.
Can I have a
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the bid documents for the Dorcas reconstruction project, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay. Approved unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So we're going to move down now to the Planning Commission appointment criteria. Is Karen with us tonight? Is she going to lead that discussion, or are you leading that, Layla?
Yeah, I will actually ask Karen to join us tonight and to walk us through the criteria. I can just tell you that her and Councilor Edgington and I met and established some proposed criteria, and both her and Councilor Edgington provided some really good feedback on the application, which is not really part of the process, but we included it as well just to get your feedback. So I'll step back and let Karen take over and talk you through sort of the four criteria we came up with and what we're hoping to learn from folks with that criteria. So Karen.
Hi, can everybody hear me okay?
We can see you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you too.
Yes, okay.
Yes, we're good.
Thank you. I really appreciate the invitation to join you tonight. I know that Jenna would have done a much better job of introducing this topic to you if she were here. So I'm happy to play second fiddle to Jenna. But what what we're up against coming up shortly is right now we have one vacancy on the Planning Commission, and at the end of December, we will have 2 additional vacancies. So there is some time pressure to go through and adopt this criteria, and I'm really hoping that you will approve it tonight, and maybe even add some additional criteria that makes sense to you that we might have overlooked. But the main things that we're looking for are 4 objectives, and the first one is we're really looking for balance on the Planning Commission. We would like to see gender balance, social justice and equity balance, a balance of expertise, and also balance among the stakeholders. We're interested in hearing potentially from people who own businesses in the city who will have time, to join a commission as busy as ours. But we're looking for people perhaps in the urban growth boundary who may be affected by what we do now and what we do in the future. Maybe people who own property here but don't live here, but have a vested interest and a reason to want to join a commission like ours. So that's the first criteria, is we would like to kind of open and broaden the scope of people who might apply. The second one is that we're really interested in people who have read the comprehensive plan. It's not a terribly long document, and kind of have a good feel for what the commission's past was looking for in that document, and maybe has some ideas for going forward on a rewrite of that plan. And also people who have had some experience with the land use ordinance, the zoning ordinance, subdivision ordinance, and those kinds of things. So it's someone who's got an interest in the process and already has one foot in the door, perhaps, to getting up and running quickly. Probably the most important thing that we're looking for is somebody who's able to weigh and balance some pretty complex issues. You probably know this, we have 2 different spokes to our attention. And, the first one is the one we spend the most time on, and that's the quasi-judicial hearings, where we operate public hearings and make decisions on land use concepts based on our zoning ordinance. The other is the legislative. We also propose legislation for the council to adopt, and that's going to be a critical factor coming up in the next couple of years. So we're interested in people who can objectively weigh and balance some pretty complex and intermingling ideas, somebody who can help us pick through the weeds to get to a really solid decision-making process. And one of the things that we want to try to ferret out, if we can, in that is how much personal bias people may have and how they may weigh that bias in a public hearing setting. And the last one that's really most critical, well, not most critical, but it's is also very critical, is that we want to make sure that we have people who aren't going to have to recuse themselves due to bias or potential conflicts of interest. We would really like to have a full board able to respond to whatever comes our way. The more voices we have in the process, the better decision making we do. So we're really interested in people. So for example, a property developer that may have projects in front of us, probably not the best person to have because of the potential for conflict. That's basically it. We've got our 3 positions that are open. One is available right this minute, but we've decided to delay an appointment so that we can use our time wisely and vet the 3 positions all at the same time. I think that the timeline that we're looking at is, assuming that you approve that criteria tonight, we would be able to open applications by the end of this week, we're hoping, and that we'll have them open for 3 weeks. And so they'll close in early December. That'll give us a week or so to review the applications that come in, and then interview. And hopefully we will have a slate for you at your January 4th meeting, so that at our next planning commission meeting on the 17th, we'll have a full commission. Did I miss anything, Layla?
No, and I don't think you played second fiddle at all. You did a
Yeah, I
great
know,
job in
right?
first chair, Karen. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? I'd be happy to answer if I can, or I would love to hear your comments on the criteria if we missed anything important. And I don't know if you've had a chance to review the application. Maybe you have ideas about some things that we could add that would help get to the meat of each applicant's thinking.
Well, Karen, I think the criteria are excellent, and I would suspect more broader and comprehensive than what we've used before. So I really appreciate that. I also reviewed the application form, and it is thorough. My only question is, are you open to people who are very interested in learning, but may not have had the experience with the zoning criteria that you requested? Is there a place for somebody that's really interested in getting involved, and interested in the Planning Commission, but not necessarily educated in what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. If they meet the other criteria, if somebody,
Right.
There's no educational requirement, there's no college degree required. What we're interested in is people who are interested and have a vested interest in the city. So, yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
It's a learning experience. Every one of these applications is a learning experience for us. And in all honesty, we always learn something new.
Thank
And I
you.
would just add to that, that one of the things I'm really big on, and the new members of council will get this too, is training folks. So we're setting up 2 trainings that will actually be joint Planning Commission City Council trainings. So Planning 101, which will be in January 28th, I think is what we have on the schedule. And then we'll also have Brett Estes from the Department of Land Conservation and Development to come and do a comprehensive planning 101 as well. So I think a lot of folks, especially citizens who join boards like this, often don't have subject matter expertise. The goal is to ensure that they get that. And so you have 4 remaining members on your Planning Commission, Karen included, who are seasoned, who've done this. And I think there's a hope maybe we could have some mentoring opportunities too between new commissioners and existing commissioners as well. So that's just wanted to add that. And I'm hoping we can make those trainings also available through our live stream, so members of the community can listen in on those.
That's excellent.
Karen, you had mentioned the sort of 2 functions you have, the quasi judicial and the legislative, and sounds like obviously you have to spend most of your time on the quasi judicial. I'm just wondering because I've heard some folks in general talk about a desire to have the Planning Commission play more of a lead role, in sort of helping develop policy. Has it been a function really of time, or is there maybe a skill set that's been missing that you can hope to bring in with this new round of openings?
It's been a little bit of both. We try not to do too many legislative changes to our zoning ordinance, in part because they're expensive and they're time consuming. And we don't like the citizens to think that we're constantly changing the rules on them. But so what we've done in the past is we've tried to collect as many problems as we can, write solutions to those problems, and then bring them to you to adopt. That's going forward, because we are going to be looking at the comprehensive plan and enacting new zoning ordinance to fulfill that plan. There will be a huge legislative effort happening going forward. It's going to be huge. In the next 2 of these are 4-year terms, and one is a 2-year term. So we're really looking for people who will stick with us through the duration and get that new legislative policy put into place.
Good.
It's going to
And
be
then the other question I'm glad to see that you're looking to avoid having too many recusals or the need for too many recusals. I'm just wondering, since you've been with the Planning Commission for quite a while, what's been the history? Have there been many over the years? Have you had to have folks step back?
No, we have not.
Okay.
Very rarely. We've had a couple of property developers, but they didn't have any active projects during the time that they were on the commission. So Mike, you were on it for a while. I don't remember any recusals. Do you from your time?
I think Hans did maybe once.
Mhm.
I was wondering about.
That
Yeah.
was years ago.
Yeah, we really don't have a lot.
Yeah, Karen and
But
I-
because we're going to be looking at all of the policies, that's going to be critical going forward, not just development, but
Sure.
all of the policies. Sorry.
Thank you.
Mayor, Karen, thank you first of all for bringing this to us and the work that the three of you have done to put this together. I really appreciate it. We've, over the last year or so, gone from really pretty basic selection process, or in some cases, really trying to find somebody willing to serve process, to a process now where we are actively looking for people that meet criteria and trying to find the best person for that slot, which goes along with a renewed interest by the community in serving on these various groups, and the Planning Commission being one. So that we should be very, very happy with that. And I'm pleased that you folks have done that. I am particularly happy that you have the decision criteria outlined prior to going through the process. One thought that you might want to consider is some sort of a decision matrix that allows you to kind of keep track of where each applicant is relative to meeting the minimum criteria. Will help you, I think, in the end, trying to evaluate. Sometimes, at least in my experience, is backgrounds get lost in the shuffle of all the different people. So I think that would be helpful. And the last thing that I wanted to mention, and this is not really your thing, it's more a broader thing, but it raised some thoughts in my mind when I read it, and it was the question that you have in your your application, and it had to do with suggesting that the Planning Commission meetings will be held remotely, basically, for the next 2 years at a minimum. And it's not something to discuss tonight, but I do hope that going forward that the newly impaneled council does consider moving some of these meetings into a more in-person meeting format with an additional use of the Zoom, or technically using the meeting to be able to broadcast the meeting. I've gone through this with another group that I serve on, where we did the very same thing. We went completely remote, and over the last 6 months or so, we've gone back to an in-person schedule with Zoom added. And it makes a world of difference. I didn't think it did. I loved Zoom going in. I thought, this is fantastic. I can wear shorts and nobody will know. And it's all the benefits of not having to go to a meeting place, but you lose something, in my opinion, amongst the group by not having in-person meetings and being able to sit and talk to somebody as if, when they're in the actual room. And just to finish by saying, I checked today with that group, and because we purchased a device that it's like a bar, if you will, on a stand that looks pretty technologically advanced, but it allows you to have a full room perspective, has all the speakers in it. It allows you to zoom in and out with nobody having to do anything other than monitor the Zoom people. And we paid $1,200 for that, and it does a marvelous job. So all I'm saying is, going forward, for something maybe for the new council to consider is, with the Pine Grove availability and the technology being available, that we consider moving to some in-person meetings at some point in the future. I think it would be helpful to the community. And with that, thank you very much.
Could I just comment, just briefly? I have no idea about the technology. That's beyond my expertise, so I'll rely on you guys to help with that. But I also really appreciate the decision-making process that the council put in place for commission appointments. I think it's making a huge difference, and it's professionalizing in a lot of ways all of our committees and councils. So I really do appreciate that. And I just wanted to mention that. So, and I agree, it would be great to go back to in-person meetings as soon as we possibly can. But, you know, we have a lot of people with health issues in this community, and I really wouldn't want to endanger anybody sooner than we need to. So I think we're just being as cautious as we possibly can, but I also am looking forward to in-person meetings. It's really nice to be able to meet the community as a whole. And I think it brings out more questions and comments when people can stand rather than having to raise a hand and be called on. So thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in on that. If we had a city hall, we would be back in person right now and doing these hybrid meetings because we're required to by law now to provide that opportunity. So as part of the planning of new city hall, we are working on the integration of technology that will enable us to do that. I have had some preliminary outreach with the folks that coordinate the Pine Grove Community House. We can go back to 1947 when we held meetings at Pine Grove. But there is that would be a conversation that we would need to engage with them, because we also have council meetings and a real strong desire to get city council meetings also back in person. I agree wholeheartedly with the in-person framework. We would just have to make sure that we have the resources to support the Pine Grove, because that would be lost revenue for them if we were taking up 2 basically full days a month, including court. We actually operate court out of the graciousness of the Nehalem Bay Fire Department. So we have multiple needs, very strong needs for a gathering space that belongs to the city so that we can do this efficiently. But I'm more than open to exploring that, just being really well aware that there are significant cost and time impacts on staff, and that we would need to work with the Pine Grove Community House to secure that space, which means other people couldn't use it. So I just don't want to make light that it's something we can do just by snapping our fingers. There's a lot of moving parts to make that happen. And so I think that continuing to focus on building a facility that can meet the community's needs is something that, if that continues to be a priority of the council, that we will move forward on. But it does create a lot of logistical problems that we don't have that space now.
Okay, getting back on the agenda item here, is somebody willing to make a motion to approve this criteria?
I make a motion to approve the criteria and the application form both. I thought they were excellent.
Okay.
Layla, point of order, does it require us to make a motion, or can we just, I mean, it seems rather formal for selection criteria.
Well, we did say that council would approve it. So I think, you know,
Oh,
why not?
all right.
Doesn't hurt.
I'll second the motion then.
Okay, thank you, Steve, and we'll do it. All in favor of approving the criteria, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Say nay. Unanimously approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, Karen. Good seeing you.
Thanks, Karen.
It's so we got 2 more items of old business that we've talked about before, and let's get on to those. The first one is short-term rental inspection and renewal fees. And Layla, or are we going straight to Scott, or what are we doing here?
I'm handing it over to Scott.
Okay.
Are you sure? Okay, so last month we brought, during the work group session, brought to PowerPoint with a kind of a presentation of what we're looking at as far as short-term rental fees that would cover renewals, inspections, pretty much cover staff time. And as I said last month, Steve's favorite thing, cost recovery. So I did update the PowerPoint. I'm going to go through it really quick, and just to note I did take Steve's advice. I believe it was you that asked if this covered, all of the staff time. And it actually did not. So I talked with Layla and talked with Nina, kind of get a feel for how much time they spend. And Layla, her time is not as large as Nina's. She gets more involved when we have people that don't agree with our inspections, and we have to run it by Layla before we make a final decision. So I'll just go through the PowerPoint really quick, and if you have questions at the end. Oh, Nancy, you need to let me be able to share my screen.
Try it now.
Okay. There we go. Okay, so we'll go through this fairly quick since we went through it last month. So why are we asking for a fee increase? Because back when the ordinance 10-3 went in, the changes went into effect, we didn't really realize at the time how much staff time was going to be involved to actually implement and enforce the ordinance. So right currently, the fees are not sufficient enough to cover the cost to administer of administration, the inspections. The current fees do not account for the additional staff time that was required for the implementation and enforcement. Our current cost recovery rate, and this number is actually less than what I initially projected last month, is actually down around 39% based on staff time. And our goal is to recover, the additional 61% that is not covered by the fees, and to have 100% cost recovery for fiscal year 22-23. So the additional staff time required is for the administration, inspection, and enforcement. And like I said, it's currently at 39%, and who covers the remaining 61%? That comes out of the general fund. So we're currently right now, the new application fee is $250. That'll be increased to $650. Those are for people that are applying to be a short-term rental. The periodic re-inspections are the every 3-year inspections that we go in, make sure there's no, life safety issues, and that they're compliant with the current ordinance and regulations. And that's going to go from $150 to $350. Follow-up inspections for the re-inspections we found this year, we probably had about 70% failure rate on those. And the staff time involved to go in, re-inspect, and to go through the process of the requirements with the applicant and what's needed to repair was a significant amount of time. It actually surprised us how much time was involved with the back and forth emails, phone calls. So this year it was 75, we're proposing 325. So the random inspections, I know Steve doesn't like that word, so I think we need to rename that to miscellaneous, which would be people that are applying for, they're looking to purchase a property and they want us to go in there and do an inspection before they purchase it to make sure there isn't anything major that would prevent them from renting. So I think we can make that change in the ordinance. We can call it miscellaneous or other inspections, whichever one you guys prefer. And then the annual renewals will go from $250 to $850. The proposal, the overall proposal will bring us pretty close, if not just a little bit above the 100% cost recovery. So I showed the comparisons last month to other jurisdictions around us, what they're charging. And currently we're right about in the middle if you take the average of all of them. And I'm not sure if you can see all that. The new proposal will actually put us well above what other jurisdictions are charging, but we really don't know what it costs for them to administer their program and enforce it. We don't know if they have quite the level of requirements that we do. So, we feel that's kind of not, we really shouldn't be comparing it because we're not comparing apples to apples on this. So in conclusion, the budget impact, it'll be positive. The city's budget, it'll be posited on the city's budget. It'll provide additional revenue to recover this staff time and costs associated with implementing and managing the short-term rental program. Workload, there will be no additional workload to collect the fees. Staff, we recommend that the city council approve the proposed resolution repealing resolution 21-16. And the alternative is council can elect to maintain the existing fee structure. Like I said, I was going to make that short and sweet, and I'm going to stop sharing. No, somehow.
Scott, I'm wondering,
Now my computer locked up, so.
in the next few minutes, can you check against the resolution that we have in our packets? Because the numbers that you just gave, unless I'm missing something, don't seem to match up with what the resolution is. I just want to make sure I'm in agreement with the numbers. I don't have a problem with that. I just want to make sure the numbers you're presenting are the numbers in the resolution if we were to approve it.
Steve, there's probably a typo in my PowerPoint. It is going to be my guess.
Well, they're way off.
What's that?
Like, well, they're quite a ways off. Like for a new license, I think you mentioned 850.
Correct.
And when I look at the resolution, I got to go back and find it here, but
I see what you're saying. Hold on here.
you see it?
No, because I'm having issues with my computer right now. Are you still seeing my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
For some reason, I can't seem to get out of it.
Is it showing, for example, effective November 9th, the short-term rental license, initial application will be $400.
Good. I wonder if the wrong resolution got sent to you.
That's what I'm thinking. Because when I looked at the staff, in fact, I asked this question of Layla, when I looked at the staff report and then I looked at the resolution, they didn't match. And so I just want to make sure that whatever we pass is the right numbers to get the 100% cost recovery, which, by the way, I want to make sure that you understood is not my favorite thing. My favorite thing is actually spending time with my grandkids and golfing. And I'm planning on doing a lot more of that beginning next month. So cost recovery is important, but it's not my favorite thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why that happened. One thing you could do in the motion is to approve the resolution per the fees as presented by staff, and then we can amend the resolution to reflect the appropriate fees.
Okay, and Steve, I just got a text. Just a second here.
It is incorrect.
But I thought it was from
Yeah,
Tuesday.
it is incorrect. I took
Yeah.
it.
So somehow something got missed or swapped in the translation, because I know I had that updated. I know.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to make sure whatever we adopt, we've got the right
Mm.
numbers. And the other thing I might encourage you to consider is the term special inspection, because it gives you a very broad, pretty much uses for whatever time you have a special request or special inspection or special need. It might be the right term to use for the inspection process.
You know, really, Steve, the only inspections that are covered on that are the purchase inspections. And unless Judy, and I think she's on, but I'm not sure if she's on the panelist, but I don't think I was talking to her the other day, and I don't think we've ever had one other than somebody calling for a pre-purchase inspection.
Well, you guys can figure it out. It's not as far be it for me to design what the system is labeled, but I just thought special is often used in the industry. So, but whatever works.
Okay, so the numbers in my PowerPoint were the correct numbers for the dollar amounts.
So I believe we've got to repeal resolution 2116, replacing with resolution 2217. And it's going to have to be, and the numbers will have to be amended as per Scott's PowerPoint.
Right.
of the motion. So can I ask somebody to make that motion?
I can make the motion, but I'd rather make the motion with it amended by what the staff report shows
Okay.
rather than the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay,
Is that working? And then the numbers in your staff report are correct? Yes, you're muted, but I think you said you're not a yes.
Yes, they are, Steve. Thanks.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2217 with the cost allocations based upon the staff report as presented.
I second.
it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
All right. Thank you.
Scott. Now we're going to revisit from last month, the surplus vehicle discussion with Dan. Is Dan still with us?
You better be.
Yeah.
There he is, yeah.
I'm choosing to be quiet.
Yeah.
So we're revisiting this. I wanted to get some clarity to everybody on this vehicle with council. As I was saying, it is a work truck. It is a 5-speed manual transmission, 4-wheel drive pickup. Talking with Layla, and she can jump in here and interrupt, but I think the better use of what you guys were wanting to do with the vehicle as a possibility would be maybe to use one of our old police vehicles that will be coming up to surplus soon. So I'm throwing it back out there. It's been sitting down at, of course, the parking lot. I have no room for it, unfortunately, up here, especially now that I have some bunch of emergency supplies up here. So I asked the council again to allow us to surplus the vehicle, to send it through the state process.
So I was the one, I guess, that put the
Yes, you were.
put the nail in the, I don't know what the phrase is, but anyway, and actually Dan and I had a nice conversation that very night after council. So I totally understand where you're going with this. Part of my desire to bring up the issue, though, was also to make sure we're reminded that we do have a part-time position allocated within the budget that we will need some resources for going forward. So again, another one of those, my hope is that the new council coming in remembers that position is in the upcoming budget. I think it's really important for short-term rental oversight going into the future. So after Dan told me it was a 5-speed and it had a big work rack on the back of it, I thought, yeah, probably not the best thing. But Layla did tell us that she could drive a 5-speed, so I thought that was good.
Sure can.
Well, Steve, why don't you make the motion to allow us to surplus this vehicle?
I will do it. I'll move the motion to approve the city surplusing the Ford Ranger pickup truck.
Second.
We moved and seconded. All in favor of surplusing the vehicle, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you. Passes unanimously. So we're down to the city manager's report. Is there anything else we need to discuss tonight, or you need to fill us in on?
Just a couple things, yeah. So I just want to congratulate you first. This was a lot of work. So I just want to thank you. A lot of the items that you put forward today, I think, are really responsive to many of the concerns that our citizens have raised throughout the last year. The view grading moratorium, of course, and then also putting into place one of our first of hopefully many tools to leverage workforce and other types of housing in our community. So I want you to hopefully take a moment to reflect on the great work that's been accomplished throughout this last year, and your hand in making that policy a reality. So thank you for that. I do have a couple of things I do want to report. One not super exciting thing, but it is important. We sent out a Facebook post about this, but many of you probably have noticed there's a pretty big fence surrounding the Quonset hut right now. I did mention this at the budget committee meeting the last time we met. And that's a result of some additional due diligence that we've been doing on hazardous materials of both the schoolhouse and the Quonset hut as we prepare to develop more robust cost estimates for the options that we're looking at in terms of either a renovation or a rebuild of that, which would include deconstruction and remediating that. What we learned is that the silver paint that's on the Quonset hut is asbestos, and it's friable, which means that it can become airborne. And so our consultant found that there was material up to 20 feet away from the building. And so we are currently in the process of working with the Department of Environmental Quality to assess what next steps are. So in an abundance of caution, we went ahead and fenced that area off at 30 feet of each direction, and it will be signed per DEQ's requirements. So, you know, especially with the rains, I don't think folks need to be terribly worried about that. But I feel very strongly that we need to take every action we can in terms of protecting the public's health and well-being now that we know that that is a concern. We are working with DEQ to determine if that fence is sufficient, because to just do remediation to address that concern right now would be somewhere in the area of $50,000. So we're trying to figure out whether or not we can wait until we understand what the next steps are for that building, so that we're not spending money twice. So for example, if we encapsulate it and then we determine we're going to renovate it and we have to dispose of all of that material anyway, it would just be better to dispose of all that material as opposed to doing it twice. So that's a work in progress. We're awaiting a response from the Department of Environmental Quality, and then I will be sure to keep both this council and the next council apprised of what that means. So just want the public to be aware of that. And again, it's just an abundance of caution. The other thing is we will be having a planning commission meeting on November 21st. The transfer station has some work that they're proposing to get done. And we've been expediting a land use application with them to help move that project forward. So we expect to have that hearing on the 21st. Court will be held on the 28th. Some good news, I want to highlight some good work of staff. That's always like my favorite part of my job. Dan applied for a grant for the State Preparedness and Incident Response Equipment Grant, SPIRE, and it provides equipment to local governments and other recipients for emergency preparedness. And the program funds purchasing and distribution of equipment. 2 years ago, we received a SPIRE grant for a 500-gallon portable field trailer, and Dan secured funding for a 30-kilowatt portable diesel generator, and the cost for that unit's about $40,000. So just want to give Dan a shout out for that. I really appreciate particularly Dan, and then Eric, our police chief, also secured a grant to cover half the costs of outfitting our police with body cameras. So our police don't currently have those, and those are necessary safety equipment. And so Eric was able to secure a grant to get half of that paid for. So just want to acknowledge both of them for their thriftiness and for always looking for opportunities to find resources to help in both cases really advance the safety and well-being of both our staff and our community. So just wanted to highlight those two things. The final thing is I will say that don't want to get too ahead of myself, but Dan and I are conspiring to find a way to maybe do a tree lighting ceremony sometime in December. And we're looking at trying to light up one of those big, beautiful trees at Underhill Plaza. So more on that to come. And I think that's all I've got for the moment.
Okay, well, believe it or not, tomorrow, 2 weeks from tomorrow is Thanksgiving, so it's upon us. Wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and with that, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.